15 years after the first satellite was launched and placed in orbit, a handful of enterprising visionaries decided to revolutionize the conquest of space. In the deserts of America's far west, these pioneers, working in their modest garages, designed the most insane machines to transport the common man into the galaxy, a long-standing dream which would soon become a reality. Who has not at some time fantasized about journeying to the stars? In the United States, this dream is extremely widespread. In San Diego, we're off to meet some enthusiasts who hope to become the next space tourists. They spend Sundays in their garages making rockets. Meet Andy, the president of an amateur rocketeer club in the region. Like every year, the members build a rocket together, which they will launch during their big annual meeting. This time, they've taken on a replica of Little Joe, a launcher used by NASA for its Mercury program.
1, 2.
This rocket's powered by solid rocket motors provided by RCS Aerotech, which is a company up in Utah, and they make fuel similar to what goes in the space shuttle. The total vehicle weight is about 525 pounds. So once we light all 7 of these motors together, and the rocket will take off, hopefully vertically. Once the motors burn out, the rocket separates right here. And this whole capsule assembly and everything is ejected from the rocket using a large explosive charge inside the rocket, equivalent to about a half a cup of black powder. So I'm thinking like 12 inches. I'm thinking the box only 12 inches wide. A bunch of us to push, that's all. You ready? Going up and push.
You want it straight back?
Yeah, straight back. Once we get the wheels on the pavement, we'll rotate it. Go slow.
This story you are about to witness is only the beginning.
I grew up watching television shows like Star Trek and things that people travel in space. They have ships that go out for years at a time and everything. And I would enjoy that, going to a place that no person has ever been to. And I've traveled the world. I've been in the military, and I've been in every continent on the planet. And I'd like to go places I haven't been before. And I think that's going to be fantastic for people. Get the common man up into space, and I think very soon, probably within 20 years, we'll have people living in space full time. I look forward to it. I hope I'm one of the people.
I made seats for the rail guides. I put plugs in the bottom for the rail guides, so they have to put those in, and then CG is the only thing I'm worried about right now.
I have this magazine. I don't think I have it anymore, but they had all this. They designed all these futuristic ways to go to space and everything, like bus stations here. So I wish that we hope that we could do that, because the Earth's getting overpopulated and there's pretty much dying because of global warming. Have colonies other than Earth. I think it'll happen in my generation, maybe not theirs, but
Thanks.
A week later, we're in Plaster City, a ghost town located 2 hours from San Diego. The California Amateur Rocketeer Clubs all meet here once a year to launch their homemade rockets.
Let's get all the kids up here. We're just a couple minutes away from the giant mosquito launch. Going in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Little Joe has arrived safely. Between takeoffs, each member shows his finest work.
Range is clear. Sky is clear. Going in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
This is a Barbie doll. I got it for Christmas 2 years ago from my sons. And we took a G.I. Joe Apollo and took him out and put Barbie in it. built her rocket. It's 12 feet tall, and she's been up to over 8,000 feet twice already.
To the mid-range again.
Okay, ready to go.
Just in your head. Good afternoon, Plaster Blaster. Sorry for the long delay, but the Little Joe 2 is ready to go. This is the largest model rocket ever flown. 560 pounds plus. It's going in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
If the parachutes open, the launch is a success.
We got chutes, we got chutes. Good job, brother.
There was no motorhome or van out there.
Didn't quite work perfectly, but nobody got hurt. It was good, safe launch. Looks like the rocket's going to be okay. We're very happy.
Wait a minute, I don't see a chute.
Like Andy, most members are waiting impatiently to take off for the stars.
I remember way back when I was a small child, seeing the first American space shot when we launched John Glenn into orbit. We were sitting at breakfast, and I remember the incredible feeling when I saw this guy walking out in that silver suit and got into that rocket and going, they can do that? And ever since then, I want to ride. That's the dream.
For more than half a century, the general public passionately followed the space race between the United States and the Soviet Union. 1957, the first satellite in orbit. 1961, the first man in space. 1969, the first steps on the moon. After the collapse of the Soviet Union, space conquest took a back seat. The Challenger and Columbia accidents put a damper on the American space shuttle program, once destined to make several manned orbital round trips every month.
A lot of people were energized by the Apollo program, the early space age. They thought they were seeing the beginning of a bold future of human in space. And, we're sort of sour about what happened after Apollo. We didn't see the continued exploration outward. Now people are saying, well, how can I go back? How can I, capture the glory of those early days, the vision of people living and working in space?
In the 1990s, an American businessman decided to give space conquest its second wind.
I realized the spaceships to carry the rest of us into space didn't exist. So I read about a Frenchman, Raymond Ortegue, who was born in Paris, moved to New York, and in 1919 he offered a $25,000 prize for the first person to fly between New York and Paris. And I saw, oh my God, 9 different teams spent $100,000 to win this prize, the Ortegue Prize. That's an amazing way to cause innovation and breakthroughs. So I created the Xprize to bring about a new generation of private spaceships that could carry the rest of us into space.
26 teams from 7 different countries participated in the Xprize Cup finals. The goal of the competition was to carry out the first entirely private flight into space without the help of an important space agency. There was only one winner, Spaceship One. In 2004, the historic flight of this plain rocket paved the way for a new space era.
Before you ignite it, you're indicating 140 knots or so. And within 10 seconds or 11 seconds, you're supersonic. So, you get 3 Gs on your back instantly when it lights. And boy, that first 10 seconds is about the most dynamic flying I've ever done. When you look out the window and you see the curvature of the Earth, and you can see along the edge of the Earth this thin blue line that is the atmosphere, and the colors and the textures on the ground, and it's a mind-blowing thing to see.
Just about at apogee. Call apogee 1.
I'd never seen that before, and it really, really was a remarkable experience.
It was very much a breakthrough in sort of the mindset that existed up until then, that space, human spaceflight at the very least, was a government program, and that's something that only governments could do because it was so expensive and so complicated. Here was a very small private venture at that, with one millionaire backing them, spending $25 million. They flew people into space. It really changed people's perspectives about spaceflight and human spaceflight in particular.
But when it came back successfully, I just felt absolute relief. So many people had told me it's impossible, it'll never happen, people are going to die, why isn't NASA doing it? And I said, no, this is something we absolutely need. We need to allow ourselves to take risk to have these dreams come true. So when it was finally won, I felt relief. And then I felt happy. And then I said, what do we do next?
Straight as an arrow.
In the wake of Spaceship One, an entire generation of entrepreneurs decided to literally reach for the stars. These new pioneers set up shop primarily in the deserts of the western United States. Around California's Little Mojave Airport, where Spaceship One was built, they created a new Silicon Valley. From their hangars, they all dream of developing a new breed of tourism, suborbital space travel. A suborbital flight consists of a brief incursion into space at an altitude of 100 kilometers, just as Spaceship One did. This is much higher than a conventional airplane, but still a long ways from the altitude of the International Space Station.
The market looks like that by 10 to 15 years, once these flights start going, you could have 15,000 people a year flying. You could have up to $1 billion a year in revenue. That's a fairly sizable market, and that's enough probably to sustain several companies worldwide providing these services.
About 10 different spaceships dedicated to suborbital tourism are already being built in these hangars. The first commercial flights are scheduled for 2010. One of the leaders of this new market is Richard Branson, who founded Virgin Galactic as part of his huge company, Virgin. His future fleet of shuttles is being built here in great secrecy at the Mojave Airport, and will consist of 5 Spaceship Twos, an improved version of Spaceship One.
This flight will be unlike anything any of our passengers have done before. I think that, it's impossible to fully prepare for the experience, but that's mainly the emotional experience. The sky outside the window is going to be changing from blue through to mauve, indigo, and finally to black. And then you've got that incredible contrast, because immediately the rocket motor switches off. It is completely silent because you're in space, so there's no motor on, and you're instantly in zero gravity. They will have around 4 to 5 minutes to explore zero gravity, but importantly to look out of the windows. And we know that most of the people that have signed up for those early seats, this is the real peak point of their experience. had about 200 people now who have signed up. They come from, I think, around 25 countries, and a lot of those people have actually paid the full $200,000 up front in order to secure one of the first 100 seats. The average age is probably early 50s, so this is the baby boomer generation, the kids that grew up in the 60s. You know, they watched Apollo, they watched the moon landings, and their parents told them that they would be going to space.
The business model is very much like any sort of tourism company. You have to sell an experience to them. Much the same way as if you were going to Antarctica or going on a safari in Africa or climbing Mount Everest, some very extreme activity. And the success these companies will have will depend in large part on how successful they're able really to sell the experience.
While waiting for Virgin Galactic to send its first customers towards the stars, other entrepreneurs with less capital are developing equally ambitious projects. In Texas, we're going to meet one of these new startups, which takes pride in its willingness to revolutionize, in its own way, the methods of the aerospace industry. Like every evening after work, the 8 unpaid employees of Armadillo Aerospace get together to fine-tune their space engine known as the Quad.
It's basically a set of flying fuel tanks. The 2 that aren't covered with the insulation carry the alcohol, and the other 2 carry the liquid oxygen. We put a single engine in the middle with gimbal control, which means we can move the engine around to balance it. It's just like trying to balance a hammer on your finger. That's exactly what the computer does.
They were ground and
John Carmack is a 36-year-old millionaire. It was he who created the video games called Doom and Quake, which sold several million copies throughout the world. He founded Armadillo 6 years ago by investing a good part of his personal fortune. The Quad is computer piloted, and mastering the joystick has become a major advantage.
What we're trying to do is take sort of the methods that you have in software development, this very vibrant, creative, competitive industry where you've got so many people trying so many different things. We've flown 13 or 14 different vehicles with different systems, engines, control systems, because we're learning as we go. We're trying things, finding out some things are easier than we would have thought and some things were harder.
This is what really the new space industry is. They're trying to beat a new path in the space rather than simply build the same old big rockets and they go after the same largely government markets that the big aerospace companies are going after. They're saying, how can we do things differently? You know, what are the different markets we can go after? What are the different technologies we can go after?
The conventional aerospace industry, which is tied at the hip with NASA and the federal government, can't do things quickly. They can't things do cheaply. We've spent a grand total of about $3 million, I think, over the last 5 years, which is not pocket change. But for NASA, they probably lose that much down the back of the couch every week. And yet we've achieved some things that they haven't with their huge organization.
For 6 months, the entire Armadillo team has been mobilized for one sole objective: to participate in the next edition of the Xprize Cup. Their machine, the Quad, will launch a new challenge known as the Lunar Lander Challenge. It's got to make a 100-meter round trip in front of an audience. With a week to go before the test, a concerted effort is being made.
What I'm doing now is I'm taking off the bottom layer with a little bit of the adhesive so that we can go ahead and put some new insulation on. This is the real rocket science right here. I've already tried every noxious chemical we have in the shop, and it wouldn't take it off, so I'm back to the scraper.
Anything coming out of...
The next morning, Armadillo members get ready for a final live test before the competition.
This here straps down really nice on this.
Oh, yeah.
Great.
This is awesome. 3-footer won't reach.
Kids that put out the fire last weekend are going to be out here. We can ask them.
For the moment, there's no room for a human passenger in the quad since it's only a prototype. John, however, has big plans for it.
Check. That's really a fairly high-end, sophisticated space system that we would be flying there, and it is a large step on the way towards either suborbital space tourism or even multi-stage orbital systems. It's only a minor modification that you would do on these to make something that could go all the way to 100 kilometers. Our next vehicle is going to look like 2 of these stacked on top of each other with 4 engines, so you're looking at a vehicle that's under $100,000 in cost to build that's capable of going all the way to space.
Still in Texas, we're off to meet Rocky. Handicapped since the age of 17, this talented inventor founded his own company called SpaceMiners. Recently, he turned his efforts toward the construction of a new prototype. He is also participating in the next Xprize Cup competition, which is only a week away.
Hey, Rocky.
Hey, how's it going? Well, sorry about that.
How you doing?
Pretty good.
What you got there?
I was wanting to unscrew these and clean it all out in there and make it run a little faster. Wow. So they are a little thinner, yeah.
Yeah. 1.5 pounds each, okay?
Yeah, I think that's barely just the right.
Hey, every great idea was started in a garage.
Lockheed, wasn't it? Was it Lockheed?
Every great one. Apple, computers, Microsoft, they all started in a garage. I started my business in a garage. He starts his in a garage. Garages are meant for inventions. And if we didn't have a garage, we'd be really hard up.
To build his bizarre machine, Rocky asked for assistance from Mark, a former aerospace industry engineer. It took 900 hours of work to build it and a great many round trips to and from the do-it-yourself shop.
This is Mr. C's hardware. In the past 2 months, I've been here almost every day. They don't even ask me for my identification when I write a check. I think they know my driver's license number by heart. I was 8 years old when the first American astronaut went into space. And I thought, this is really a great thing, but there's no way somebody like me could ever get near it. Now I'm 56, and I do have an opportunity to get near it. I may not go in space, but maybe something I've built or something I've contributed to will go into space. So I'm going to grasp for it.
$1.49.
What's up?
Hey, Mark, how you doing?
Pretty good.
You got the parts for the next phase there?
Yeah.
I did most of the designing, Mark. I left it to him to do the solar array because it's very tedious, and he's good with tedious stuff. it's a little large for me to handle too, you know. Being in a wheelchair, you know.
Did I get it backwards, Rocky?
I don't know. You made the cheater marks.
Thank you very much. I think it goes the other way.
Yeah, I think it does go the other way.
Okay. This happens a lot. People come over the fence and want to know what's going on. Sure, it's a space climber. A space climber. This is a NASA competition. We're going to go into space with this thing. There will be a floodlight placed underneath the device. These are photocells. They will turn on the floodlight. You'll take the energy from the beam to the cells, generate electricity to the motors, which will turn the wheels, the friction wheels, and climb this ribbon.
A life-size space elevator will function in the same way. From a platform in the sea, a cable will go up to a geostationary space station. Fuel would no longer be needed, since the space elevator would be propelled solely by a laser beam.
This is really Rocky's dream. Rocky envisioned this, and then I get out my hammer and my screwdriver and I try to give shape to it. The weight is 11 kilograms, and I want to get it down to 10 kilograms. And at this point, I'm going to have to take the weight off 1 gram at a time. A little bit here and a little bit there.
Basic principle behind the space elevator is to travel and, you know, to send cargo cheaper and safer than we're doing now. I always, since I was a kid, was afraid, even if NASA said, hey, you want a free ride, I probably wouldn't have gone. I've seen too many explosions, you know.
To put a pound, say a half a kilogram of material in space, you have to spend $10,000. Well, if this concept is successful, it could cost as little as $100 to put 500 grams of material into space. That would make space accessible to little people. Small universities could build a satellite, take it up, release it, capture it, bring it down.
When I was thinking about that concept, I was thinking that once we have the space elevator built, there'll be a lot of work to do, like cleaning up our orbit. There's a lot of minerals out there that we're kind of lacking here on Earth. I think it would be interesting to be able to mine these minerals and bring them back. If I had a chance to go to space, I would get out of this damn chair, you know, float around for a while. You know, sitting in the chair all day, it just kills my back. And working in space, I think, would be very comfortable. I think I'd like that a whole lot.
Like Rocky, most of the new space entrepreneurs already see a permanent human presence among the stars. They envisage a world where people will live and work in space, inside floating colonies or bases on planets. The Space Island Group, one of the new startups, is positioning itself on the manned station market. Their idea is that once in orbit, they would use empty fuel tanks to make space modules.
Within 5 years of our first launch, we will start connecting several of these tanks together into a wheel. So we'll have perhaps 12 of these joined together into something that looks like a bicycle wheel. These rotating space stations will hold eventually hundreds and perhaps even thousands of people. One or two of the 12 tanks that we use will be set aside as hydroponic sections that can grow food for the occupants of the space station.
There's been a long-term vision of orbital factories, of being able to manufacture large semiconductor wafers in weightlessness much more effectively than you could on the Earth. Ball bearings, things like that. That would be perfect spheres generated in weightlessness.
This really is a new era in mankind's history. Once human beings start moving off the planet on a large scale, it's going to change the history of mankind more than even the discovery of the New World did. It's going to improve the survivability of mankind because there's always the chance that something major could hit the Earth.
After years of reduced activity, NASA has decided to relaunch manned space exploration and is planning on returning to the Moon in 2010 to set up a permanent base there. Within this framework, the new space entrepreneurs can be of invaluable assistance.
This new space industry is very new. 5 years ago, they were there, but they were very small and they were not very coordinated. Now they're very coordinated, their numbers are growing, and their voices are getting stronger. NASA has started waking up to the idea that these are people that have, good intentions, they can contribute a lot of good ideas, and there's no good reason not to use them.
The great question is, how will the roles of the space agencies and the new startups be shared in the future?
There's sort of a near frontier that would be low Earth orbit that would primarily be in the domain of the private sector. Once you get beyond that, once you get out to the Moon and certainly out to Mars and beyond, that falls more in the domain of the government because it is very difficult to get out there. Really, the only markets so far for doing that are government markets.
NASA is not in the business of making money. NASA is in the business of acquiring knowledge through exploration and science. It's very hard to make money doing science. And so that's why the commercial industry is not very interested in it. So I think there's a clean line between the science and exploration and the commercial development that will allow both communities to exist together. Maybe you see them as two different highways with many ramps that go between them. So you can, if I send up astronauts and I want to go do geology on the Moon, but let's say Robert Bigelow has put a hotel on the Moon. Maybe my geologist will stay at this hotel and while they do their exploration. So NASA doesn't have to do everything on the Moon. NASA doesn't have to do everything in low Earth orbit.
Faced with the emergence of a suborbital tourist industry in the United States, European space agencies appear to be sizing up the changes that are taking place. European projects are many in number. There's a new, more or less serious project almost every week. For the most serious among those known and published today, there's a kind of partnership between the space agencies and often individuals who present these initiatives.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1, top.
Europe has a number of advantages. Its aerospace industry is a world leader in the area of satellite launches, thanks to Arianespace. The situation could therefore develop quickly. French astronaut Jean-Pierre Aignéret, in fact, has recently proposed a detailed private engine project. The leading project will be the creation of a suborbital plane which will benefit from the work done in this area in Europe since 1985. I'm a son, or rather an orphan, of the Hermès space program, which was launched by the CNES, the French space agency, at the same time as the Ariane 5 rocket. And so by taking the studies that have been conducted, we have a big technological head start and can, in 3 years, develop the plane we want. There's no reason not to carry out this in Europe instead of waiting to see an American rocket plane flying over our continent. The manned suborbital vehicle, VSH in French, cannot be built yet due to a lack of funds. The English, who have also appeared on the commercial flight market, are more advanced. The Star Chaser company, based in Manchester, is already developing a capsule for future space tourists.
Autoplex, you select 470 westbound in Las Cruces.
This is M88.
It's only 2 days before the Xprize Cup competition. The Armadillo Aerospace team is heading for New Mexico with its precious cargo. They'll have to cross the entire state of Texas, a 15-hour trek. In the meantime, qualifying rounds for the Space Elevator Games have begun at Las Cruces, a few meters from the Xprize Cup site. Twelve teams are trying to qualify. Most of them come from American universities, although Canadian, Spanish, and German teams are also competing. The SpaceMiners are champing at the bit. They're only allowed one try, and so it's got to be right the first time around. Using available equipment, the final touches are carried out.
I discovered that when we mount the climber, that we need to make sure that it doesn't move at all. So I've got a screw, and I made a little block that goes in here, but then I still didn't have a spring. So Rocky says, why don't you use your ballpoint pen? So this is my return spring. And it works just right. I'm a nervous wreck. I'm extremely stressed out. I think any moment I'll just fall on the ground and start shaking.
I'm doing okay. Just relaxed. Drilling holes. You know, I can't get too excited drilling holes.
Do you remember that I told you that I was going to remove weight 1 gram at a time? Well, I saved this just for you. This is how I did it. This is what we did. If you'll notice, all of these holes that we've drilled here and there, and there's a few more that you can't see. We took off a connector we didn't need. We took some extra little pieces of wire because every gram counts.
We find Ken with the organizers, and for a good reason. The technologies invented here can be put to good use by NASA in its long-awaited return to the moon.
For example, if we decide to put a nuclear power source someplace far away from people and where the people are working, we might stick it in a crater somewhere that's far away. Now we need to get that power from that crater to the robots and to the habitats, so we want to beam that power from where the source is to where we need to use it. And so it's the same sort of technologies that we're demonstrating here in the beam power competition that we will use on the moon, for example.
To earn the right to participate in the Xprize Cup competition, you have to prove that your prototype can ascend and descend in a fluid manner. 5 teams have already qualified. The SpaceMiners have faith in their lucky star.
Here's our payload. A ball cap with one of our sponsors and our sponsors' business cards. If you didn't sponsor it, you don't get to go up. I'm a capitalist. Proud of it.
I'm hungry. I want to go to lunch. We need to qualify and go to lunch. My butt still hurts. Can't wait to get up in space, float around. You know?
Okay.
You good?
We're ready.
Okay.
Rocky and Mark are the last ones to go. For them, the stakes are really high. There are $400,000 to be won.
Maybe so.
We're supposed to flat.
More lights. The lights. We need a neighbor on this one. That's good. That's good. Oh, not in the center. Around the perimeter. That rim. No, she is coming down. Look,
The prototype gets stuck halfway through. Impossible to start it up again. Will this 50% success be enough to qualify?
The wind came up and it was shaking the climber, and I couldn't make the last-minute adjustments, so it went up about 30 feet and stuck. We didn't win, but we got to try, and we got our climber on, and it did climb, and I'm very happy. I got a chance to try. You know, that's what America's about. You know, you get the opportunities.
Welcome you to the 2006 Wirefly Xprize Cup.
Good morning. Welcome to the Xprize Cup. Enjoy your day.
The big day is finally here. The Xprize competition is open for public viewing.
This is really the Grand Prix of space, the America's Cup of Space. We have $2.4 million of prize money this year. Every year the prizes will probably get larger and larger. I want to create an event that people from around the world travel here every October to meet the astronauts, meet the engineers, touch the rockets, maybe buy a ticket to go to space.
Hi there. Hi. Would I like to go into space? Yeah, that would be cool. Are you going to take me there? Yeah. Let's go to space right now. I'm sure there's a spare rocket around here we could borrow. That would be fun. Merci beaucoup.
After arriving safe and sound from its journey through Texas, the Armadillo Quad takes center stage. The Lunar Lander Challenge begins in an hour. While waiting, the public admires these futuristic machines.
This is the Mark 1X racer we just unveiled today. It's called Thunderhawk. It is a 1,500-pound liquid oxygen, cryogenic liquid oxygen, in kerosene engine. It's 19 feet long, and it blows a 15-foot bright orange and yellow flame out the back. I think there's a huge market in space sports. The Rocket Racing League is very much like Formula One, but in the sky. Think about taking the Monaco Grand Prix, that racetrack, tilting it 90 degrees vertical in the sky, and seeing single-engine rocket planes fly the course. Ever since I was a young boy, I dreamt of flying a rocket, a Buck Rogers or Flash Gordon rocket out into space, and we haven't got there. And we won't get there unless we do it ourselves. The government isn't going to do it for us. So we need to find new and innovative solutions. And the parallel could be made towards the early days of aviation, when Blériot was flying across the English Channel and my grandfather flew across the Atlantic.
The public has also come to witness the show that takes place above their heads.
The Xprize Foundation is proud to present the Wirefly Xprize Cup.
We can also see some of the more original entries.
This is the landing legs that allow us to land on a rough surface and cushion the landing. They also allow us in takeoff to actually know where our thrust is and how close we are to takeoff. We identify Lord Jesus Christ as our sponsor because he's inspired us to approach very challenging and very dangerous activities. And we also believe that the Lord, the Creator, fully intends human beings to use the resources he's created off this planet as well as those on it.
The public hovers excitedly around the quad. The Lunar Lander Challenge is only a few minutes away now. John Carmack, our multimillionaire CEO, is the star of the day. The pressure is even greater since his team will be all alone. Armadillo has just learned that the other contestants have thrown in the towel. The judges signal the start, and they're off. In less than 2.5 hours, the quad has to make a round trip of about 100 meters. This feat requires great technical prowess, considering that this is the first flight under real-life conditions.
Congratulate them on the first entry into the Lunar Lander Challenge.
Thanks, Bill.
All right, Wendy, I guess we'll be back up to you at the main stage. We hope to pick up a countdown.
2 hours later, the Armadillo team is ready at last.
3, 2, 1, ignition. And he's off.
He's up.
Moving sideways. Pad 1 to pad
2. There's the target.
Because of a very shaky landing, John Carmack's quad cannot make the return trip this time. As the Armadillo gets ready for another attempt, the spectators rush over to Anousheh Ansari. This American billionaire has just spent a week at the International Space Station. She's the 4th space tourist in history.
Thank you for supporting Xprize. I think the visions of floating in space and the freedom I felt, experiencing weightlessness, is something I will carry with me forever. And also just being able to see Earth from up there, it's a vision that I will always cherish in my heart. At night I close my eyes and try to imagine I'm back on the space station, and I can't wait to be able to do it again. We need more innovation from young people, and I'm very happy to see very successful entrepreneurs here in the U.S. have started putting their money in the space industry. That shows to me that they believe the future is in space, and I share that dream with them.
Armadillo is ready to try one last time to win the Lunar Lander Challenge. The stakes for this small team of volunteers, in addition to glory, is $2.5 million and dozens of future contracts.
We've got thrust building up and...
Whoa! Oh!
Looks like they lost their IMU. Or
3 times was not a charm here.
It was not. So
Get up, you can still do it.
In spite of Peter's encouragements, the quad does not get up again. It's all over for this year. No one wins the competition, but the adventure lies in the attempt.
The fact that it could fly, 4 times now, and do it back and forth and back, and, it was our time to take it, we just ran in a little bit of bad luck. I guess we made it look easy, but it's never easy.
They printed the checks already. We just have to go earn them.
Yeah.
So next year we'll be back for both levels. The next time we wanted 30 days. We've got a year now. So I don't think anybody can touch us next year.
I'm certainly disappointed, and I know everybody here is going around congratulating me, telling me how awesome the flight was, but my wife's going to frown at me when we get back. It's like, you didn't win the prize.
We are seeing the first steps of a new industry. We are seeing companies that are spending, literally pennies on the dollar compared to the large aerospace companies building rocket ships. These vehicles that we saw, Pixel and Texel from Armadillo, they're not toys. They are real spaceships.
It's just a tiny step to go ahead and say, well, we stack these, we make them modular, and then we've got a commercial vehicle with module redundancy and all this. It's not that far off, maybe 2 more generations or something. We are close.
The Xprize Cup has proved once again that we have entered a new space era, the effects of which will soon be felt by the general public.
Certainly 5 years from now, I think we'll have a suborbital space tourism industry. We'll have, one or more companies out there carrying passengers on suborbital space flights. You'll see companies start to evolve into looking towards orbital space flight 5 years from now, so that perhaps 10 years from now you may have the beginnings of a real orbital space tourism.
If commercial industry gets out into outer space and they can stay there because they develop a commercial engine, they're making money and they can invest in their company and they can grow, then that will create what we call sustainability. We really want exploration in space to be sustainable.
4, 3, 2, 1, launch!
And missile away.
Before there is a durable human presence beyond our planet, the new space pioneers must demonstrate that they are capable of sending men into orbit at a reasonable cost. The adventure for our space cowboys has only begun.